This is Rudo Radio coming to you from the 559.
Hello and welcome to Rudo Radio, SB Nation and Cage-Side Seats weekly wrestling podcast. I am Nick Bond, joined as ever by Mr. Mark Normandy. Mark, how are you?
I can't tell if you intentionally add an extra letter to a random word every intro, or if it's now just it's just in your head somewhere buried that you might do it and then it happens.
Yeah, no, I also have a lisp. So, especially if we've been talking for a while, like at the end of last week's episode, I started just adding letters to words. So, yeah, that's, thanks for bringing that up, Mark. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I like to spice things up, too, on top of it.
Well, don't.
You're so hateful.
It's not true. I'm full of love.
For WrestleMania, right?
I really like WrestleMania.
Yeah, so did I. It was awesome. It was really long. It was super long, but it was good.
I mean, they're always going to be long. The key is, can you keep my attention, and can you rebound from a bad match? And they did. I think they successfully rebounded from. There's really only one dud on the card, and even that had some fun spots, and they rebounded from it pretty well. And that's good because, man, last year, I mean, we could really oversimplify and not think about it too much and just say, you know what made this WrestleMania better? Fucking The Rock didn't show up to, masturbate in front of a million people with a flamethrower for fucking ever. For fucking ever, Rock. Forever. Holy shit, that took so long. I'm mad about it again. But you know what? WrestleMania 33 didn't have that. And
no, it didn't. It actually didn't really have any. Even the Pitbull musical thing made sense.
That was great. I got a beer. I went to the bathroom. I came back. They were wrapping up. I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah, that is a legitimate pee. Where you used to have the women's match would be treated as the bathroom or popcorn match. They have figured out that, you just have a musical guest and then everybody can pee. It's great.
I mean, it must be terrible if you're at the stadium and 70,000 people go to the bathroom at the same time, but, I don't really care about them. I'm not there.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people left during the Baron Corbin Dean Ambrose match on the pre-show.
I'm not even going to talk about that.
Well,
the only thing from the pre-show I want to say is it's cool that Mojo Rawley won the Dre because, and as Brandon Stroud pointed this out in his Best and Worst, the best wrestler doesn't have to win a Battle Royal. It's a situation much like Alexa Bliss winning the title off of Becky in a weird style match that allowed for that. It creates these situations where weird shit can happen and the unexpected can happen. And hey, in this case, Jinder Mahal stole a brewski from Rob Gronkowski, which, dude, are you an idiot? He's huge, and he loves beer. And he loves Mojo. The only thing he might love more than partying and beer is Mojo. But that's because Mojo brings him partying and beer.
Yeah, no, that's pretty unequivocal. That Gronk loves beer and partying, and that he loves Mojo Rawley. They've done a lot of backstage interview stuff, and you can tell they're actually friends, which is nice. It's not just you're kind of friends with this guy. Let's bring him on TV.
We had Claire McNear works for The Ringer now, but she used to work for SB Nation, and she wrote this feature because she went on the Gronk party boat that went off to the party island, and they partied on the boat, they partied on the island, and they partied on the way back from the island. Just party. Mojo was apparently, he's the guy that makes it all happen. Gronk just allows the party to come to him, and he is incapable of saying no to a party. But, the parties just happen, Mojo brings the party that happens around Gronk. So
if a party comes up to me at a bar and says, you want to party?
Yeah,
I'm going to say yes.
Gronk's going to party. That's why you get in trouble with, the media anyway, when he was, dancing after losing the Super Bowl. It's oh, how dare he? How dare he have more to his life than that one thing? And maybe that's how he was dealing with it. This was Gronk's catharsis through dance. A simple one now.
Oh God, Catharsis Through Dance. That's actually the name of my first album. So, be dropping next month.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, it's not dropping next month because now we're going to court.
A lot happened at WrestleMania. In particular, The Undertaker seemingly retired after getting his butt kicked by Roman Reigns. So,
well, if I had one word for that match, the word would be uncomfortable. Man, if you ever want to see what it looks like for a guy at the peak of his physical condition to beat up someone's grandpa, that was the main event at WrestleMania 33. And, like, I'm not blaming WWE for this. This was a situation... They had to. Undertaker was having hip surgery. Undertaker had surgeries before on other things. He had been beat up by Brock Lesnar and managed to come back in time. But they committed to this Roman Reigns thing thinking that everything would be okay. It was not okay in January. It did not get any more visibly okay by April. And that's why they made the call days before Mania. Like, let's get Jim Ross. Let's make this the main event. It's going to be for Taker's last match. And, man, Roman, you literally are going to have to carry this match.
Yeah, I don't think it was... I think it was still better than, I would say, about half of his WrestleMania matches, but that is damning with faint praise, because...
It was better than the Giant Gonzalez match? Yes.
Actually, no. That is maybe my... No, I'm kidding. No, the King... I don't think that's the worst one. I actually think... I know we've talked about this, WrestleMania 19 is the worst one, but yeah, it was like a mediocre... It was better than, like, him versus Jimmy Snuka or... Jake Roberts. Like, it was a serviceable match by a man who was part zombie.
Is it the worst one since the streak became a thing? Like, since...
I think I personally hated the Bray Wyatt match.
I thought it was fine for what it was supposed to rehab Undertaker.
And I thought this was a better match than the Bray Wyatt one. So that's the only other one, though, that's even, like, near this one.
It probably would have helped if there wasn't the... I hate to point it out, but just because people are going to be hypercritical of a Roman Reigns match and an Undertaker match at Mania. If there wasn't that one botch, which I feel like it would Taker, like, lift too early or something, and Reigns wasn't lifting yet, so just had to, like, do the reversal again.
Yeah, no, there was problems.
But again, he said, it's young, strong guy wrestling like somebody's grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's only so much you can do. I think for what it was a very good match. Because, I mean, he could barely walk. But for an Undertaker match, it wasn't great. And for Undertaker WrestleMania match in the last 10 years, it was probably the worst. Like I said, I stand by Bray Wyatt. We'll get to Bray Wyatt, or unless you...
No, I mean, the good news is... All anyone's really going to remember about that match in the long run is the iconic walk away. The fist at the end, the gear left in the ring. There's an incredible photo that WWE had on their website of, you see Undertaker way off in the distance, and he's actually like all fuzzy and out of focus. But it's him with his fist raised, and it's coming from behind the ring, and the focus of the shot is on all the gear in the ring, and you see the WrestleMania sign in the background as well. It's just great. It's purple, blue lights everywhere, and... Like, that is what people are going to remember.
Yeah, they did a really good job in general of, throughout this WrestleMania, creating the feeling that you were watching people perform on a stage in a way that they'd never really brought up. It was a more direct, like, this entire thing is this giant spectacle. And that was one of the most spectacular things that happened. And also, I liked how they framed Roman at the end of the match, in terms of that shot of him being the big dog in the yard with all the fireworks going off. Like, I thought they really did a good job. And Roman extended this into Raw, of making this feel important, even if the match was, like, incredibly important, even if the match wasn't great.
Yeah, it was interesting. And man, like... A tough thing for Roman, who probably didn't know... Like, when is he going to have a regular WrestleMania? So...
Never.
He has WrestleMania 31, the finish gets changed, like, day of. So this guy goes into this thinking he's going to be WWE champion for the first time. And then one of his closest buddies is becoming WWE champion instead. And then the year later, you've got the feud with Triple H that, like, nobody gives a shit about, and everybody's tired.
And everybody's hurt. Like,
it's just, yeah, it's like, hey, you main evented the worst WrestleMania in 4 years or whatever. And then this time it's like, okay, you were just going to have like a match pretty high up on the card, but nope, now you're main eventing, and now you're the guy who retired The Undertaker, and it's not a classic. And it's not your fault, but hey, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, for him, it's going to continue to be weird because he has the John Cena thing of half the crowd boos him and half the crowd cheers for him, but he doesn't have the John Cena thing of being someone who appeals specifically to children on top of everything. So in other words, they could frame everything as like this Hogan-esque John Cena versus the world, will he overcome the odds, and build an entire WrestleMania main event around it. There are no discussions of any odds with Roman Reigns. It's a way different storytelling dynamic. So I'll be interested to see if he, like, these are actually the only I guess he's going to main event next year's WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar. That's the plan. But, like, I just get the feeling it's going to always be weird for him because of the way he is accepted or not accepted by the crowd.
You know, by the end, I feel like Roman Reigns is going to be a better drawing Randy Orton.
Yes.
Like, stomp.
That is a really, yeah.
Because he gets way more of a reaction than Orton does. Like, the RKO gets a ton of response, and part of that is Orton, obviously. But, like, the RKO is the draw there for a lot of people. Reigns is going to probably be a better drawing Orton. I don't know if he'll win as many championships or whatever. They're kind of in a good space now that Finn Balor's up. I know you don't love Finn, but in terms of a guy who's going to get huge reactions on the face side, they have someone right there. And he's good. You know, he can go heel. He can go back and forth to whatever they need. And I think he's going to be a better fit for what some people want Roman to be. But Roman obviously does enough on his own. I don't know. You never want to put the company on one guy, which is fine. The company was essentially on John Cena for a long time, and like Batista and Orton and guys like that showed up as well. But it's just too hard. You know, during the Attitude Era, the most popular time, like, Austin was amazing. Austin wasn't going to do it by himself. You know, you had Vince McMahon there, you had The Rock there, to a lesser extent, you had like Triple H and Mick Foley and Undertaker and all these guys who could all step in when they had to do whatever. So that was kind of the tough situation for Reigns a year ago. It's like, he was the guy. That was everyone was hurt. So they're in a better spot now, and I really love what he did on Monday, which, I don't know, we can talk about it later, we can just talk about it now with the... Yeah,
let's talk about it now, because it was an extension of this match, which is that they are flat out, they are almost literally shoving him down your throat now.
And why should Roman Reigns give a shit what the crowd
exactly
thinks? Which is good that they finally embraced that, because, dude, he's main evented 3 WrestleManias in a row. He won 2 of those matches, and the only reason he didn't win the other one was because a Money in the Bank cash-in happened. And it looks like he's en route to, like, make up for that next WrestleMania. You know, he's the man. It is his yard. And that's great. I mean, the only major clean loss he has suffered in, 2-3 years now is Finn, right?
And Seth.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes, we have the rock, paper, scissors with the Shield. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty good. You know, that's when you get into that Cena territory where you start going like, okay, well, he lost against this guy and that guy. And you can argue he's not losing enough, but at the same time, like, you need someone like that so that it's a big deal when you lose against them. Yeah, exactly. So, like, when people say he's shoved down our throats, what they mean is he wins a lot in high-profile matches. Not that they're in high-profile matches necessarily, but they win a lot. And this is one of the first guys where they're like, yes, that is exactly what we're doing. We are shoving this guy down your throat because he's the best, most over guy. Like, we are willingly telling you, deal with it. In a way that they never said with John Cena. Like, Roman Reigns literally just let them boo for 10 minutes and then said, it's my yard now, and left. Yeah, like, how do you react to that as a fan? You either go, this guy's awesome, or you're just shitty and keep booing. And either way, like, Roman won. So, Guess what he always did? Thanks for making Roman look strong.
He doesn't have to... I can't believe I'm saying this shit. He doesn't have to be a good guy or a bad guy. He's just the guy.
It's true.
Like, it is true. And in a way that John Cena never, or anybody at this level, ever had to deal with. Or not deal with. Which is, they don't have to play to one side or the other. So I'm actually really interested, based on this match, which established, meaning the Undertaker match, that he is the dude. Full stop. There's no, oh, well, maybe eventually Seth will be... No, he's the guy they are pushing all of their chips in the middle on. I'm interested to see if that works, because he is over, and I personally think he's as good as he's ever been, and he's getting into the part where you say, like, oh yeah, like, he's a really good player, but maybe not ever an MVP. Like, he feels like he's going into MVP territory now, in a way that he was just a really good player before.
I mean, I'm down with Roman versus basically anyone. And that is the side of a guy that you trust and want to put in stuff. Like him versus Lesnar again, awesome. Some of the crowd is going to boo Roman. Oh no. Some of the crowd boos Lesnar or cheers Lesnar. It doesn't really matter what his alignment is. You just have very strong opinions about him. And I don't subscribe to the, like, you get a reaction and that's good. Like, it's not, like, 100% accurate because, well, some reaction... I don't believe in X-Pac heat, but, like, there is some people, like, who boo for... reasons that aren't necessarily, like, good for the character or whatever. But that's a whole conversation I don't even really want to get into. But Reigns, man, you put him against an actual bad guy and not, like, a Kevin Owens bad guy, people are probably going to cheer Reigns. You will hear the cheers. I mean, you hear the cheers. We've heard them. You put him against Finn Balor and you have him go to, like, lean a little to his darker side, people's going to boo the shit out of him, but, oh my god, that's going to be a loud match. And... he's got the power to get people to turn on his side, which is what happened during that WrestleMania 31 main event. Everyone was cheering Lesnar at the beginning, and then Reigns was just putting on such a baller performance that, like, that was going to be an all-time great WrestleMania match before Seth Rollins came out and did something about it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to establish pretty definitive... He's officially at the point where if you chant... I mean, he got there actually probably before Cena did in terms of their relative careers. If you chant something like you can't wrestle or whatever, you're just wrong at this point. Like, yeah. He puts on he carries people to good matches, and he puts on good match after good match after good match. The dude is a bruiser. I really like their willingness to just completely push aside any concerns about the fan reaction, because they're getting a reaction, and you, like you said, not every reaction is a good reaction, but when you're, like, the #1 merch seller, and ratings go up, and you have a bunch of social media followers, like, yes, any reaction is a good reaction at that point.
Roman's popular, he's not going away. But I don't know. I think they're close to making people happy. I just think the idea of, like, oh, you have to turn him heel so that people can cheer him is, like, fucking ass backwards. Like, yeah, okay, it worked for The Rock, but people were telling The Rock that they hoped he was dead. Like, there was a legitimate hate there. What they hate about Roman Reigns is the idea of Roman Reigns. This is a very different situation. Turning him heel is not some cure-all.
Yeah, Roman is good already. Face... Rocky Maivia was a dog shit performer.
He was a blue chipper who was lost at sea.
He was actively terrible, and that was the problem. He was actively bad at what he was doing, and some of it is that they forced him to wrestle a style that he wasn't his strength because he was a better natural heel. But, like, it wasn't that. He was bad. Roman is a light years ahead of where Rocky was at that point. Like, they're not even in the same... First of all, relative to that era, this era is just orders of magnitude better. And he's a much more talented performer right now than Rock probably ever has been, but especially when he first started out.
Yeah, it's... Ugh. We could talk about this the whole podcast, so let's not.
Yes, let's... actually, I wanted to talk about... Because with the Undertaker leaving, you have that weird void of, like, the mystical performer empty, and Bray Wyatt's supposed to be the person, but...
I don't know if he really is. You know, I don't know. You've got the Demon Finn. Like, that feels like your weird connection to, otherworldly things. I mean, Bray obviously has his mystical connection. It just doesn't feel the same as The Undertaker, especially because he's not in a world where others are doing that. Like, Undertaker had Kane to play off of. He had Paul Bearer to play off of.
He also came through in an era where, like, it was just different. Like, you had a guy on his team named IRS, like, and the $1 Million Man. It just, gimmicks were different back then. But I feel like they're trying to, whether or not they're succeeding, I think they're definitely trying to create this, like, mystique around Bray Wyatt that, okay, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. The maggot idea of projecting something onto the ring, really cool idea. The execution was just not there past the first thing. Like, the first thing, it was really cool. And then they should have started doing things where it's an active projection and not just a Willy Wonka ride.
Yeah, they needed to... We needed to somehow actually get, like, insects and creepy crawlies involved somehow after the projection. Like, you find out, like, oh shit, that was just Bray Wyatt essentially summoning this and warning you, and then all of a sudden, like, it just happens. There are maggots somewhere, and Randy Orton fucking falls into them. I don't know. But, like, just something
exactly
gross and weird.
I think they were trying to be like, ooh, oogie, pictures. And it was, like I said, it was just the scene from Willy Wonka when they're going through the like, tunnel. Like, that was it. And it was, like, after you see that, there's, like, one scary shot in that. And like I said, the maggots were cool. I actually really like the idea a lot. But they had no idea past, oh, let's project something on the ring. Like, if they made it so the projection, like, encased, like, went and attacked Randy, even if it was just visually, that would have been cool, but it was just like they ran B-roll of insects.
Yeah, there were two things I think they did well, which was Randy and the ref's reaction to the maggots when they first showed up.
Yeah.
Which was just a giant, what the fuck, and the ref, like, ran out of the ring.
Yeah, the first one was legitimately really cool.
But, like, why did Bray Wyatt not hit a Sister Abigail right out of that?
Yeah. And
immediately.
Yeah.
So the other thing they did well was Randy Orton being like, oh, they're just pictures, and coming out of one of them and just being like, RKO. Like, I'm not scared anymore. These are just pictures. You've got nothing. RKO.
Yeah, there was a lot wrong with that match. They're not compatible.
No.
Which you've talked about being very disappointed in.
Love the feud. I think the feud is amazing. I think it's one of the best things that they've done on SmackDown. Just tremendous.
Which is saying something.
Yeah.
SmackDown's really, really good.
I love it so much. If any of you want to read my breakdown of it that I had from before Mania, it's sitting there at SBNation.com. Just look up, like, Bray Wyatt Arson, Mark Normandin on Google, and it will pop up. Like, I love it. But this match was disappointing as shit, and unless this House of Horrors thing that they're gonna do takes these ideas further, like, yeah, it would be cool if we saw a ghost again, but then, you know, it turns out there's actually Sister Abigail and not just, like, a projection of her. It'd be cool if fucking bugs drop. Like, they could be toy bugs. I don't care. Just make them look real. Like, drop down onto Randy Orton's face and just freak him out. And all of a sudden, Bray is able to, like, hit a move instead of just standing there and laughing and being like, I'm so spooky. I like what he did on SmackDown on Tuesday, where he was like, wow, we're going to lose this tag match. Teleport.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if they're gonna do, they seem like they have a bunch of really good ideas with Bray Wyatt, but ran out of budget for that. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. Is they have these ideas and they're like, let's just do it the lowest budget way possible. And it's like, no, if you want to nail this, you really have to, like, step up for this guy. You could make him into a truly transcendent wrestling character if you invested in his theatrics. But you seem to only want to use, like, basically the equipment you already have to do the stuff with him, that he's beyond that in a way.
It's a shame that Bray and the Hardys will be on different shows. Because if the Broken Hardys could come out and you could do more, like, compound matches for the both of them, but do it with those guys having the actual input and it's not a rush job and everything, you could do some tremendous shit. I don't know how it helps you at a pay-per-view or anything like that. But you can just really, you know, make some awesome shit for the weekly show. Mm-hmm. And maybe you can still do that, but I don't know. Maybe having the Hardys around will help them with the whole idea, but they really need to do more stuff like that. Because, like I said, They made me invested in a Randy Orton feud for WrestleMania in 2017. And Randy Orton, for all the good that he's ever done, what's a great WrestleMania match that he's had?
None. He's never had a great WrestleMania.
So, like, I should have known better.
He's actively had he's not good at WrestleMania in a way that it feels like Alex Rodriguez before 2009, where you're like, I don't understand why you can't hit in the playoffs.
You're so good. What is wrong with you?
It's almost incomprehensible how mediocre to bad he is at every WrestleMania. It's not that he doesn't care. It's that I don't know if his style's not conducive, but it just does not work out. And it's not that he hasn't had good opponents. He's just like, the best match he's had was the CM Punk match. And honestly, that wasn't exactly a barn burner.
Yeah, if that's the best you can do against Punk. Ugh. What else we got for Mania we want to talk about?
Well, you mentioned Matt and Jeff. I think we should talk about it a little bit. We'll talk about it. Oh, yeah, okay, let's talk about it.
Some tie-ins for that, too, anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. So I guess there's... Hold on, I wrote it down.
That's the women's matches?
Yeah, and SmackDown actually had a pretty good show, other than, I think, the Bray Wyatt. The women's title match made it onto the main show after everybody was like, why isn't this on the main show? And why is the Intercontinental Championship on the main show? Yeah,
I still have people, like, not now, but if I bring it up again, they'll be hounding me again about, like, what my problem is. And they'll say that actually I'm the one who doesn't like equality because I don't think women should be on the pre-show. Which is not what I was saying. I don't think a top title should be on the pre-show. Put your mid-card shit on there if you're going to put a title on. I prefer no titles at all, but if you have to, it's something like Mania where you've got 700 matches, just make sure the top title for someone isn't on the pre-show. And what happens when I think too many fans treat women's wrestling as like a subset of wrestling, because you get a lot of defensive like, well, the cruiserweights are on the pre-show. It's like,
yeah,
fucking the cruiserweights are tiny men.
Yeah, they're not. It's not the same thing. Like,
you just don't. You're not treating men's and women's wrestling both as wrestling. If you were really like, well, this is women's wrestling, it's different. The tag teams don't have a match. You know, the SmackDown tag team they don't even have a match. The women should feel lucky. That's not how it works. Tag team.
But I think that's a more legitimate understanding of than like, oh, well, the cruiserweight or the Intercontinentals on the pre-show. At least with the tag team, you can understand where they're coming from, even though they're wrong. It is different, like historically. At least that makes sense because it's a world title. This is a world title. These women are the best wrestlers in the world. Like, they should be on the main show.
My reaction to all this is like, okay, well, at least the men have 2 tag divisions.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There is no women's tag division. You know? Like, and you could do it. You absolutely could. Wouldn't it be awesome if, like, Emma and Dana, instead of sitting backstage for fucking 8 months at a time, when Charlotte is being featured, get to, like, wrestle for women's tag team titles? I mean, there are too many titles because there's the 2 brands, and it would make WrestleMania just literally 900 hours long. But it's just when you start talking about those things, it's even more important to focus your top titles on the main show. And you could argue the story wasn't good enough. It didn't merit it. And I would go, okay, neither have a shitload of other top titles, but you put them on Mania because it's a top title. That's the point.
Yeah.
Tell better stories if that's an issue too.
My only thing, and this is my only thing, is the only reason I would have liked to have seen it on the pre-show is I get the feeling it would have gotten the full amount of time. Outside of that, I was very happy to see it on I would rather see it on the main show and not get the full time than be on the pre-show and get the full time. But I was disappointed they did not seem to get the full...
They would get the full time, but they'd be lost to history. Because that match would not be on the WWE Network when you look at WrestleMania 33.
Yeah, and I understand that. That's why I'd rather have... But it is disappointing for me as a fan of that division to not see them get what I believe they deserved on the card. And it wasn't a lot of filler on this card, but it was also, like... I'm sure that they're on the WWE Network. They can go as long as they want. I feel like they could have given them...
Yeah. And they did. It ended at midnight.
It ended at, like, at least when I was... Where I was, like, 15, like, we were still waiting. Like, the actual show ended at midnight. But then they did the Undertaker walking out, and that, for me, went until, 12:05. Like...
Yeah, they just kept going. And then, it's fine. I do think they did a decent job. Like, the SmackDown Women's match went fast, but they did a good job of telling a cohesive, kind of story. It's not like it... They used to do women's matches as real rush job. And it was clearly, it was just like, everyone hit their move, and then we'll get the fuck out. So many pins with transition moves and shit, who cares? This was... Naomi came back. Everyone knew she wasn't 100%. People attacked Naomi. And then, Carmella and Becky Lynch went off to do their own thing. Natalya got picked off the pile of people attacking Naomi. And then the champion who won the belt from a person who didn't lose it was left with the person who had to give up that belt. And once again, she beat her. Very quick story. Naomi comes out on top even though she's not 100%. She looks like $1 million because she's injured, competed anyway, used a different finisher than her normal one, and was still able to take back the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah. Like I said, I don't actually have a problem, but if I had one caveat, it would have been that. Though, at the same time, the Raw women's match was so good.
Oh, it was great. It was real great.
I watched it with my dad and his buddy, and they had both grown up where women's matches were not what they are now, anything close to it. And my dad was actively excited for the Raw women's match. He loves Charlotte.
She's so good.
She's so good. And when she did that corkscrew moonsault, my dad's friend was like, what was, I did not expect that to happen. I had told him, oh, she's a gymnast, a volleyball, she's an extremely talented athlete. You're going to see some shit. And man, did she do some shit. She is unbelievable. And that match was perfectly booked. Pretty much
the story.
Pretty much from beginning to end, Nia looked like $8 trillion.
I mean, not only the triple moves that they had to do to her to get her down, but the fact that they cartoonishly were like, all three of us have to pin her to keep her down.
And it didn't feel cartoonish in the sense that, it really seemed like they probably would need to do that.
I was kind of hoping that she'd kick out.
I wanted her to, yeah.
But it's really hard, because at that point, what you'd have to do is do, a triple submission. And, they don't really have... I don't think their submissions all mesh like that. Maybe if it was Becky instead of Bayley. The arm Sasha leaves out. Becky's ripping that arm off while Charlotte's working the legs. But, yeah, in the situation, the triple pin... Oh, God, it was just so great. And...
Was this your favorite match of the night, or did you have another? Because this was I don't know if it was the best, but it was my favorite, because I love all four of these performers. Nia looked great. Charlotte looked... everybody looked great, but, Nia, who I love, I talk about Nia all the time. She really had a star-making performance at a WrestleMania. She had her knocking down all three of them at the same time.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, she was incredible, and this was my favorite match of the show.
I would say, for the performance of the match, that and the AJ Styles Shane McMahon one, which I know is crazy talk to some people, at least if you rewind to a week ago. I really liked the story told in Seth Rollins Triple H.
Yes.
It took too long, but hey, it's a Triple H match, so duh, you knew that going in.
Yeah, you get a 10-minute inflated inflation.
What I loved was, I saw some complaints that Seth wasn't selling the knee because he kept going for knee-based offense. And my counterpoint to that was that Seth did not care. Entering that match was Seth showing he did not care about what happened to his knee. So him continuing to go to all this knee-based offense that he has, think of his moveset, everything uses the knees. It's just so much legs, it's flying, it's just all that. He was doing that because the most important thing for him was getting back himself and reclaiming himself and taking it away from Triple H. And if that meant he was going to hurt himself in the process, it was worth it. And I really love that story. I like less him just being cleared immediately the next night on Raw, but also I will just go, okay, whatever, at their explanation of, well, he survived Sunday, so the doctor just said, well, okay. Which is pretty much what the announcer said. They were like, well, no further damage, I guess.
Yeah, and Corey did a good job of being cleared is different than actually being ready.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good way to, block, like, you know, like deflect vitriol. Like, I don't even know who would get mad at that. Like, I just, it's wrestling. Of course he's okay the next day.
He's had more time to heal. We watch Roman Reigns. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
The Styles Shane match was real great because they did wrestle a wrestling match.
And Shane looked fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, there's some sloppy shit he does because he's Shane, but he also apologizes to you by jumping across a ring and kicking a garbage can in someone's face.
Yeah, there's stuff, like, he's one of the few guys who's a talented enough performer that when he screws up, it's understood that, like, he doesn't do this professionally. You know what I'm saying? Like, he gets a pass, but not a pass, because they, like you said, you know he's going to make up for it, but also because it's established he's not a wrestler. Like,
which is why him missing the shooting star press at the end, and, like, yeah, it was ugly, but he's 47 and he tried one, and it wasn't enough, and AJ Styles won, and that's the story. Mm-hmm. Shane McMahon left literally everything out there that he could in a regular-ass wrestling match. And Styles won.
And they even did a good job of expanding it out of that regular wrestling match for a brief time. Like, that ref bump was real, so, like, it made sense, though he was down for, like, 6 hours. But yeah. I thought in general that was, outside of the women's title match, the best booked one. I think it had... I thought the performances in the women's, the Raw women's title match were better, just because I thought Nia was so over the top. And AJ Styles I just kind of expected at this point. But Shane made me not regret him wrestling AJ Styles, which is all I could ask for.
I'm going to remember so much about that match. And, like, you know, it's not AJ Styles versus John Cena again, and it's not AJ Styles versus Nakamura, or even AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. But that's okay. We have time to do that other stuff. It's fine. We got this big match, and, like, where lots of casual fans come back and people know Shane, they put on a real good match. And that's fine. Some people are really annoyed by it because he could be wrestling someone else, but I don't know.
No, I'm in total agreement. I think there was disappointment. I think the disappointment beforehand was legitimate, but I think if you were still disappointed after watching the match, you were never going to be happy.
Yeah. And it was, you know, we found out it was their plan B anyway. What they wanted him to do was wrestle Shawn Michaels. So I just don't have anywhere to really be upset with WWE about this, where they're like, hey, Shawn Michaels, would you like to wrestle AJ Styles? No, I'm good. Oh, well, shit. Shane McMahon. Do you want to do something stupid? Yes.
And Shane did better than last year. Looked like someone, and although it was understandable last year because he had not wrestled in, 10 years? When he came back...
last year either.
Yeah, like... But at the very least, you have, like, a year under your belt of watching people. Like, he looked like a guy who had been watching people wrestle for a year and, like, also been going to MMA class, as opposed to a guy who had, like, been to an MMA class, which is what he looked like
with
last
cameras.
year. Yeah, exactly. Like, this, it feels like that was his first practice last year, and now they're like, oh, see, he's good now. Because it wasn't, like, Steamboat Savage, but the reversal spots of the submissions was really good for a guy.
The 450 into the triangle choke legitimately popped me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he looked like he belonged in the ring with AJ Styles. And like I said, it's all...
scared my baby. Because she was napping while we were watching it. I made such a sound that she immediately was like, and then, like, went back to sleep. But yeah, it was enough that it woke a baby up out of a sleep. So...
yeah, so you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And man, that's what WrestleMania is. SummerSlam is where I definitely expect the big, serious stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I want WrestleMania to be entirely, like, casual-based or anything like that, but hardcore WrestleMania is SummerSlam at this point. I think we've learned that over the last, 2 years at Barclays and the last year they had in LA. That's what it is. That's where John Cena versus Daniel Bryan happens. That's where AJ Styles versus John Cena happens. That's where you get Seth Rollins versus John Cena.
That's where you get all the dream matches with John Cena.
Yeah. But, at WrestleMania, you get John Cena and Nikki Bella versus Miz and Maurice, which, by the way, was a lot of fun. That was a great house show match.
Yeah, and the marriage proposal at the end was legitimately wonderful.
Yes, it was very cute.
And actually, I thought, in terms of consequence, this was a weird Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania. Like, stuff happened, but it felt, I don't know if it was a combination of us knowing it was going to happen and it happening exactly the way we knew it was going to happen, or if it was just not that exciting to begin with. It was more of like, oh, cool Kurt Angle's here. Do you know what I'm saying? At least for Raw with me.
Yeah, Cage Side described it as, it's basically like a empty calorie episode. Where it was like,
yes.
it was
I like that description.
So it's like, yeah, this is really fun. Does any of it matter?
Except for the revival. The revival coming in was
pushing over the ice cream cart immediately, just so you get a sense of what kind of wrestlers they are.
Yeah, we hate fun. Exactly. They did a better job establishing their characters in a 10-minute match and a 1-minute build up to them getting in the ring than you see guys do in years on the main roster. I know I use the word special a lot, but they are the best tag team in the world, full stop. Like, they are just great. It's like, they talk about it a lot, like, oh, they're old school. They're not old school, they're just great. Like, yeah, they do old school stuff, but they do old school stuff that worked. That's why they did it back then, because they didn't have the momentum of the WWE to sell tickets. They had, you were a good wrestler and you sold tickets by doing that every month.
They're making tag team wrestling a big deal again. And
palpably, Raw is.
Yeah, and that's cool. I don't know what SmackDown's doing with tag team wrestling, but it's okay. I mean, there are things that are going to change next week, so we can't judge certain roster shapes right now, because it's like they're going to do the Superstar shakeup. So, like, what if the Club gets traded to SmackDown, and all of a sudden, Styles is reunited with them, and American Alpha goes to Raw so that Kurt Angle can interact with them, and, like, New Day goes to SmackDown, and, there's all these things that could happen that completely change the complexion of both rosters' tag divisions.
Wait, you're talking about the Superstar shakeup?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Superstar shakeup on Monday and Tuesday?
Yeah.
Where they're going to shake up superstars?
Yeah, that's what they're going to do. In
a Superstar shakeup?
Yes, it's true.
Sorry, Vince said it 4 times.
Oh, of course he did. They got to brand everything, man. But you know what? Now we know what it is. We know what we're talking about, and I'm excited for it. It seems like a good refresher, like avoiding. It keeps rosters from being completely static until the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good way to create some stories in the meantime, and kind of like, okay, we're done telling this, and now this person doesn't have to be in limbo for 2 months. Like, for example, what if Alexa Bliss, now that she's out of the title scene, gets traded to Raw? Because SmackDown has done their job of, like, turning Alexa Bliss into a serious women's competitor. Don't we want to see Alexa Bliss interact with Bayley and Sasha? Like, that kind of situation. That's just pulling a name out, though. I don't know if she's going to go, but...
Oh, no, exactly. And I think what's cool about the Superstar shakeup beyond that is that, in addition, it creates this, and this is something we've talked about, and I think in general, a lot of wrestling writers have talked about, how we kind of want to root for teams, and that's what the Monday Night War gave us. Right? You had guys jumping ship and stuff like that, and that was part of the fun. It was this, like, meta-narrative about wrestling and, like, what it means to work for a company. Like, I like them kind of manufacturing that through stuff like this, where they're making actual serious changes to the way people live their lives. Like, there are real life consequences to what's happening when somebody gets traded to Raw or SmackDown, but it's treated like storyline, so it creates this, like, dual layer understanding of what's going on. And I really like that they're going to, it seems like, set up this after every Big Four pay-per-view or something like that, where there's going to be shake-ups, for lack of a better term.
Even just after Mania is fine.
Yeah, even once, maybe twice before the Royal Rumble, just because I worry.
Well, there's going to be the draft in the summer. There'll still be the draft, because they've already, like, detailed the rules of champions can't be drafted. You get your opportunity to pull from NXT at that point. So, like, they still have their major event. This just seems like their opportunity. This is like Not a trade deadline because it's the only day, but
yeah,
I'm fine with that.
That's what it did make me think of, almost like a transfer window.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I love roster stuff in general in every sport, so I'm excited to see who might go and who might not. The one person I hope stays on SmackDown is Nakamura.
Well, I mean, you don't debut him on SmackDown as the way they handled that debut. It could not be any more, like, it could not be any less subtle. Where The Miz is like, John Cena's gone. You will never see John Cena again. There's a huge John Cena-shaped void here. Oh, is that Nakamura's music?
Everybody, I liked how everybody's reaction to that was, oh, we want this feud, and we want it now, and we never knew we wanted it beforehand.
I mean, the feud I want is for Nakamura to think that Miz is John Cena. Because he was dressed as him. And it's just weeks and weeks of Miz trying to convince Nakamura he's not John Cena. Please leave him alone.
Or the other way around, he wants to be friends with John Cena, and The Miz has to pretend to be John Cena for the next couple of weeks, and it's like this farce.
It's like, I would just love it if Nakamura's like, I've never met John Cena. I'm from Japan, I've never met John Cena, I know a lot about him. You have the shirt. It says hustle, loyalty, and respect.
All white people look alike, so...
Hey, whoa.
We do. Sorry.
I was going with, he's got the shirt, like, Nakamura would just go down the checklist of, like, because Miz has got, like, the big muscle shirt on under the t-shirt, too. So it's like,
it's so fun.
It's like, you're a big, strong guy. You got the hat, you got the shirt, the sneakers, the jorts. That's Nikki Bella, right? I would love
Hi, John!
I would just love for them to play that off a lot, and for Nakamura to just be like, wow, John Cena's really strange.
Yeah, I really, really want a farce where Nakamura thinks The Miz and John Cena are the same person.
It would be a great first feud, and then by the time John Cena actually shows up, Nakamura's like, oh, you're John Cena.
But honestly, like, The Miz and Maurice versus Nakamura feels like
a dream.
A dream, but not just that. It feels like an affirmation that they understand how much we as fans, both smart and non-smart fans, appreciate the work that Miz is doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, you don't... Like I said, that was not a subtle segment. Where they're like, Nakamura, weird, at the exact same time John Cena's gone. He's automatically a main eventer. And you're putting him in the same universe as The Miz, and in the same ring as The Miz, in the same segment, Oh, it's really cool for both of them. Because Miz is a WWE main event guy, again. And putting Nakamura with him immediately, even just for that one moment, is good for both of them. Because as much as we love Nakamura, not everybody knows Nakamura. That's why he's debuting after WrestleMania instead of, like, during it or right before it.
Yeah, and they picked a good... I mean, obviously, they know what they're doing in terms of this. That is the one huge advantage. And I thought the SmackDown crowd was so much better than the Raw crowd. Though I understand it, and Mr. Brendan Stroud talked about this, that there is an understanding that they're going to do this every year at the Raw after WrestleMania, though sometimes you want them to not do it during the specific matches they're doing. But I feel like...
Baller Cruiserweight match?
Yeah, exactly. And you understand, like, how things can get out of control, and they don't, for lack of a better term, mean to do it, but they just get caught up in the moment, and they only have this 1 day a year where they get to do shit like this. But I felt like SmackDown had that, smark excitement without the smarkiness. So it was a perfect crowd.
Yeah, they enjoyed what was put in front of them.
Yes.
And so they still had, all the energy from the weekend, but they had calmed down just enough where it was a much better reaction. So, Tye Dillinger sounded like a fucking superstar coming out.
Exactly.
And the crowd just lost their mind for Nakamura. That stuff was all perfect. It was the best parts of that crowd. And
exactly.
It's good to see the crowd in that shape, so you're not always like, oh, they're just horrible people or whatever, because they're not, but they do get carried away, and there's so much energy just floating around the room, and man, shit happens when there's a lot of energy. Just bottled up in a place.
I've been in shows where things get out of hand, and they get not dangerous out of hand, but when the crowds just start feeling themselves and making the show about them. So I don't begrudge anybody doing it, but it was nice to see the SmackDown crowd have that energy without being assholes.
Without beach balls?
Yes, exactly. And I think it speaks to SmackDown in general that, like, a 2-hour show, even if you have the cruiserweights after, a 2-hour show is much more conducive to people weirdly giving you the time and patience to let things develop. The problem is you can't really get that in depth in these 2 episodes of Raw and SmackDown because there's the superstar shakeup. Like, so everything's going to change next week. Other than maybe Nakamura staying. Maybe.
Well, I really don't think they debuted someone on a specific brand to trade them. Especially because Nakamura makes so much sense for SmackDown.
I hope you're right, Mark.
I don't think they're going to move Styles either.
Yeah. That was actually the one segment I wanted to talk about. I am really interested in that for the superstar shakeup, and if he gets traded, what that means, and if he doesn't get traded, does that make AJ Styles a face? Because I'd be really excited to see him get like a Shawn Michaels run, because he's one of the few faces who's a talented enough worker to actually hold the belt for a really long time.
Yeah, and him versus Orton is going to be. I mean, Orton does not have the belt so that he can hold it until SummerSlam or something. He's the belt. He's holding the belt so to help set up whatever the marquee matchup is for SummerSlam for the belt.
Exactly. So that was like the one thing I feel like will actually play into what happens next week at the Superstar Shakeup, other than Sami Zayn, who's always on the trading block.
Oh, please come to SmackDown, Sami. I mean, that's probably a trade. That's how you end up with like Alexa Bliss moving and Sami Zayn coming.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So that both sides are like, we're changing so much, but we both gave up someone valuable. And it helps because like Kurt Angle already thinks Sami's a weirdo, and Daniel Bryan probably could go the rest of his life without having a conversation with Alexa Bliss. So it works on both sides.
And we'll talk next week, especially when he has more time to do his. I actually have a full episode as the Raw GM. How great Kurt Angle!
So good. It's so nice to not see him be like the TNA version of himself, where everything is very serious.
That's not how you spell soft.
It's just so good. So, hypothetical question.
Mm-hmm.
Nakamura's here. John Cena's gone for a bit. Got me thinking about John Cena dream matches. Okay, so who are your 5 from any promotion, too? Any promotion anywhere. If they're in WWE or outside or never going to wrestle there or whatever. Who are the 5 people you would want to see John Cena wrestle the most? People he has not wrestled. Stuff you would put up as like, you don't have to worry if it's like a WrestleMania main event or whatever. If it helps, you can do that, but who are the 5?
There's an obvious choice for me. It's number 1 in my heart, my mind, and he's probably my favorite non-WWE wrestler of all time. King Cuerno from Lucha Underground would definitely be my number 1.
That would be pretty amazing.
Also from Lucha Underground.
You just want John Cena to go to Lucha Underground.
I would like to see him face Matanza and Mil Muertes in a triple threat match.
Oh, dear Lord.
I think outside of that, it's hard because he's not from like a booking perspective, but like Zack Sabre Jr., right? That's a guy I'd like to see work with a lot of people. He's like the size of one of John Cena's legs.
He's taller than John Cena, though, so he does have that going for him.
Yeah, and that is true. That is true.
And Daniel Bryan did beat John Cena.
Yes, and that is... But... Let's be serious. Zack Sabre Jr. would get eaten alive by John Cena. Like, I love him, but he's not the type of guy that's going to really like be able to work a match where it doesn't look like he's being beaten up by somebody's older brother.
Okay. So you are out after 3?
I don't think so.
I mean, if there's got to even be people within WWE, you'd love to see him wrestle.
Oh, Braun Strowman.
Okay.
Braun Strowman is definitely, in terms of WWE, my number 1 guy. Outside of that, I mean, I'm trying to think. Kota Ibushi actually is somebody.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because he's a guy who's gonna give you that high flying crazy shit, but he's built like a WWE. You know what I'm saying? Like he's built like a cruiserweight, but he's built like a WWE guy. You know what I'm saying? Like yeah.
I mean, I want to watch him wrestle Nakamura. Obviously, that's why I brought that up. Yeah, I don't care what WrestleMania that is the main event of. It's like just make it fucking happen someday. Or SummerSlam, per our earlier conversation. I would love to see him wrestle Ricochet. Ricochet versus John Cena would be great because Ricochet is deceptively very powerful.
Here's my question. Ricochet or Prince Puma?
No, I said Ricochet.
Okay, no, that's what I was asking. It matters specifically Ricochet.
No, Ricochet.
Okay.
Ricochet is a cocky heel with all the talent in the world, and I think him versus John Cena would be an awesome story to tell in addition to an awesome match.
And that's why I asked, because Prince Puma is kind of like a...
He's different.
I don't think it's not as good a story.
No, absolutely not. Definitely not a person you mentioned on your list. I would like to see John Cena wrestle Jeff Cobb, who totally is not someone you brought up anywhere. But yeah,
nope, not once.
I'd love to see that.
Well, along those same lines, another guy I'd like to see, the Mac. Lucha Underground is loaded with guys you'd want to see.
You had your 5. You had your 5. Get out of here.
Is the Mac not on your list?
No.
Feels.
No. You know who is on my list, though? Keith Lee. I would love to see Keith Lee versus John Cena. Keith Lee is 300 pounds and does impossible things that a 300-pound man should not be able to do. And I would love to see him versus Cena. I feel like that would be the match WWE tried to pretend Mark Henry versus John Cena would always be. You just had this impossibly strong dude facing off against Cena, and oh my god, how's Cena ever going to beat him? Except this dude can also, like, fly around the ring and not just, like, lift you. He can do everything. Super Worker Cena against someone like that would be incredible. What's that? Is that 4?
I think so.
Okay. 5? Asuka. Not even kidding. John Cena, like, we're talking dream matches? I want John Cena versus Asuka.
I'm laughing because that sounds like a really great match.
It might be the best match you can do with John Cena, and I'm so sad we will never see it. Like, I get why we'll never see it, but man, especially this version of Asuka, I would love her to just pull the same thing she did with Ember Moon, essentially. She's like, John Cena? Never heard of him.
And that's the other thing, is I think her character fits John Cena, feuding with John Cena. Like, she had a great feud with Bayley, and it's a very similar character type. They're not the same. Bayley and John Cena are not the same, but they have similar tropes associated with them. And I feel like Asuka just being like okay, sounds good, don't care, like, really would work for John Cena. Just being like, you know that part where in the Miz feud where he's like, oh, you just made the worst mistake of your life? Mm-hmm. He would not say that shit if Asuka slapped him.
No. He would laugh, and then she would kick him in the quad so much while going like, how much are you going to hustle now? And that would be that.
Yeah, and also he would not send his fiance to certain death. That's the other half of it. Like,
I want to see Nikki Bella versus Asuka so much as well. Just
for the Queen of Strong Style.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh shit, we might actually, if they do the women's championship, the women's tournament, and it's WWE performers included.
She's going to be out at that point. Did you see her tweet on Tuesday?
Don't break my heart.
No, I'm sorry. She said she hopes by the time she comes back that Brie mode is activated again. And Brie is pregnant, and only is going to be pregnant for so much longer, but, you know, Brie's, like, aiming for SummerSlam for a return, and that is her, like, early date. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't think we'll get to see it.
But that would be gnarly as shit.
Oh, God, yeah. I just want Nikki Sawa to face off against Asuka.
Yeah, it's that was a really sorry. I really like that, picking the 5 people. That was good. I really want to see Asuka. Now every Asuka and John Cena feud from now on, just gonna be like, I really wish they'd feud each other.
So great, so great. But yeah, that's maybe when John goes on a 6-month indie tour, Like, with WWE's permission at some point. That's another thing I'd love to see is John Cena. Just John Cena does the indies. And he doesn't change, like, anything. He's, like, super worker Cena, so people are booing the shit out of him or whatever, but then he's, like, throwing people through the roof because he's so goddamn strong.
Yeah, that sounds like a match. Ooh, jeez. A match I would pay to see. I think I have paid to see that, except it was like Kevin Steen at PGW. They have low roofs. That's the joke.
I get it. I was at a Chikara show once where someone stood on top of a turnbuckle and they like knocked down a ceiling tile. So that was fun.
That's good. I think we can end on that.
Yeah.
Just a grown man climbing up a turnbuckle, standing and hitting his head on a ceiling tile.
Knocked it right out. It was in the ring.
Wah, wah. So Mark, where can they find you on the internet?
On Twitter at Mark_Normandin. At this point, since we don't have a huge show, you can find my wrestling writing at CagesideSeats.com pretty much exclusively. I don't think I'll be doing the SB Nation wrestling for a little bit. Although we're going to start doing a little more coverage for the minor pay-per-views now, too. So, good old WrestleMania traffic.
Given that double thumbs up, you can catch me...
I'm exposing the business.
You can catch me at The Nixter. That's THEN1CKSTER. That is the 2 millionth time that I've gotten that correct in a row.
All right, Goldberg. He's gone now. You don't have to do it anymore.
Oh, he isn't? That's like 10 times in a row. Sorry. I was keeping up with him on the... Yeah,
now you just have to compete with Asuka, and I don't know if you want to get into that contest.
Nope.
Yeah.
No. She frightens me in a very real way. You can rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Mark, do you have a review?
10.
10?
You can't see, but I'm doing... I just did the Tye Dillinger 10 thing. I even like did the little squat a little. 10.
Didn't need to know that, but
10.
Thank you. Yeah. Great.
Before we sign off.
Yes.
We had Charlotte Wilder on last week.
Yes.
Hopefully all of y'all listened to that. And if you didn't, it's a lot of fun. We explained wrestling and WrestleMania 33's card to Charlotte, who had never watched wrestling before. She wrote a recap of WrestleMania it's so good.
It's one of the best critical writings on professional wrestling that I've read in a really long time.
It's great because she gets it. She understands why you watch. She doesn't understand why she wasn't watching, previously, because it has everything that she could want in like drama and all of the drama, theatrics.
All any human would want.
So check that out. It's at SBNation.com. Just look up Charlotte Wilder and WrestleMania 33. You'll find it. Wale approved. Did you see that?
What's up?
I said Wale approved of it. Did you see that?
Oh, I did not see Wale approve of that. Yeah, no.
He even retweeted it because he's a huge wrestling fan.
Yes.
And he retweeted it and he was like, Charlotte is adorable. This is amazing. So
yeah, it's really one of the best culture writing things I've read all year. She's an exceptionally good writer, and her appreciation, and I'd like to think on some level we helped with that, because we love wrestling so much that I think some of our enthusiasm may have come through. I thought she did an exceptional job of both pointing out the absurdity of the crazy-ass shit she was watching, and understanding, like you said, exactly, almost verbatim, what I would say as to why I like wrestling.
I also think it was a very good indicator of like why WrestleMania is angled towards people who don't watch all the time.
Yes, 100%.
Because her reaction to every single match was the kind of reaction you're supposed to have if you are not bogged down in all this prior knowledge.
Including the Bray Wyatt-Randy Orton match.
Yeah.
Which she didn't like, but she understood, like, this isn't good, like, relative to the other stuff.
Yeah, after seeing the rest of it. And she thought Seth Rollins and Triple H was amazing. And I think it's because she doesn't have the same... And this
Triple H is going to go 30 minutes.
Yeah, so she's just watching and she's like, this is brutal. What the heck? Like, this is terrible. What's happening to Seth Rollins? She even sent me a message, like, right after the match. She's like, that was brutal. And I'm like, what do you mean by brutal? And she's like, oh my god, I had a hard time watching it. It was so horrible. What was happening to Seth? I felt so bad for him. Like, Great. Perfect. See, she gets it.
And I thought what was maybe my favorite thing that she wrote, and then we'll, close out the show, was her talking about how she had went from not being able to watch Seth get his knee caved in by Triple H to watching The Undertaker get completely destroyed by a steel chair and being like, I'm really interested in what this means for the end of his career and his storyline within the context of this match and wrestling in general. It was like a really interesting evolution of her thought process.
And just in a few short hours.
Yeah, it was WrestleMania changes lives, I think is what we're saying.
So WrestleMania was a success. Charlotte's piece, I thought, was very successful, and I'm very happy that she took the time to research and write and watch. And
come visit us last week. That was maybe my favorite. I love all of our episodes equally, but that felt good to get somebody, like, to explain wrestling to somebody who was interested in hearing about it, as opposed to my relatives who were just like, it's great, Nick. It's cool.
And I think maybe the greatest success of this is that Charlotte wants to go to a wrestling show now. She wants to see what it's like in person.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, of course. That's the dream. So there's not much left to say.
No.
And before we go, remember soundcloud.com/Rudo Radio. That's RUDORADIO. And I guess if there's nothing left to say, the only thing left to say is...
10.